All right, everyone. For all of the bravado of elements of the legacy media, especially with regards to newsprint, you've got continuous downsizing really going on. This is a news story. 50% of the staff at the relatively well-developed New York Daily News, they're being cut by the parent company Tronc. Now they had bought the group for $1 from Mort Zuckerman. So, the overall investment that they made, fairly slight, at least on the front end. So they're probably not too mad about this. The thing is, these sites simply cannot compete. As the world moves towards internet-based news, somebody who has zero overhead in their home with a webcam is capable of drawing in the kind of viewership of some actual multinational firms. Single individuals are capable of doing that. Some of them, they have bigger audiences. I think at this point, Paul Joseph Watson probably has about the same viewership as many of the major panels on CNN. I know, I've been attacked by groups where I'm looking at their daily page views and it's dwarfed by my presence. And so it's no surprise that a group that's basically a local and regional paper can't compete. So, the New York Daily News, their staff's been cut by 50%. This is just another in a string of mishaps for the legacy media. You'll remember, I think it was 2 years ago now, Salon had to downsize and cut some of its staff. The Blaze is basically non-existent. They tried to sell the company, Glenn Beck did, to Ben Shapiro's parent firm. They were receptive. They were going to get $20 million, which, I wouldn't pay $20 for the Blaze. You probably couldn't pay me to want to manage the Blaze. I don't want to sink millions of dollars into a dying publication that's got no reputation anymore. Then at the last minute, they're like, nope, the deal's not on after all. Screw you. So now the Blaze they had to cut more staff in order to make ends meet. And it's Glenn Beck had to downsize from the penthouse to the suite, and the poor dude, he had to sell one of his limos probably or something. It's he's fine. It's the staff that suffer. Apparently, though, they got a decent severance package. They keep getting paid for the first 90 days. But I'm going to tell you, the first installment of money that they get post-firing is probably just going to go into a bottle. So they're going to be drowning their fears. And then probably some of it will go into, strippers and blow and the normal stuff you would expect from the New York white-collar class. Yeah, I'm very happy about this. Anytime that I read CNN cut a staffer, I think wasn't it the New York Times cut down its editorial board and a bunch of other, I think the Wall Street Journal and all these firms. Newsprint, middle of sort of missing link media, the salons and sites like that are predominantly on BuzzFeed, certainly Vox. They're large online, they're corporatized, but they're semi-independent. Even something like the Young Turks would fall under this banner generally. I know, it's parent companies the same as I think CNN or it's Time Warner or something, but still there's semi-autonomy there. They've suffered the most. That is, the missing link media has been practically wiped off the face of the earth, and they're not able to compete with YouTubers at all. Single YouTubers generally outcompete entire corporate firms. Some of these groups have $10 million budgets. Pretty significant. When I get 6 times, I think now the audience of Right Wing Watch, when they're making hit pieces about YouTubers, I just sit there with a shit-eating grin. And then you've got the old guard media, which is basically radio, which it's an afterthought. Nobody gives a shit about that. Newsprint, which is dying, and then cable news, which some cable news firms like MSNBC and Fox, their ratings rose recently. But they rose because CNN's collapsed, and a lot of the people that were watching CNN and still watch cable at all went to Fox and MSNBC. Like I've said, cable especially is really the tale of a shrinking lake in which the fish have begun to cannibalize one another. Just because one fish grows a little bit doesn't mean that the pond isn't shrinking. It's still shrinking and endangering all the fish. It's just that one will last a little bit longer than the rest. At some point, maybe it stops shrinking. Maybe we'll have rain someday, they think, as they desperately try to avoid the inevitable, which is abandoning cable altogether as a dying medium that really nobody gives a fuck about. Yes, television, that sort of Gen X power, is slowly dying off in the world. By the way, those same people that now pretend to be worried about that fact, they used to criticize TV all the time and say, don't watch TV like a couch potato, it'll rot your mind. It's all fake, don't watch the boob tube. And it's very funny to see them now be like, they're crying their crocodile tears talking about how wonderful television was in the golden years or something like that. And it's like so dumb. It's like, no, the internet's way better than TV. You can make content. You can interact with content. You know, you can make content now. I don't know, the way that some big tech firms are acting, maybe we won't be able to make content on them in the future. But generally speaking, it's interactive, it's more decentralized, far less censored. Like, there are many things you can't do on TV that you can do on any big tech firm. Like, Jack doesn't care, Twitter, fucking YouTube doesn't care if you say fuck. But you can't say fuck on most cable shows. You get fined by the FCC. You can only do that after a certain time period or on certain on-demand. Like, on-demand, it's okay. No one cares. On-demand will save the concept of TV. But it'll still end up being different. Totally new companies are the ones making the material. It's going to get to the point where all those legacy media firms have to sell out and whore themselves to Netflix or YouTube or something. It's going to be hilarious. They're literally going to absorb their older tech competitors, try to raise their efficiency. I don't know that it'll work. They're going to have to be extensively rebranded. Fox will probably be the last person standing because right-wing, as opposed to maybe the others that are cannibalizing one another more easily, they might end up being the one that survives longest, which would be hilarious. Online, though, it's like these groups, they don't have, for their size on cable, for the amount of budget they have, their audience should be 100 times larger. The problem for them is they didn't branch out fully into social media and streaming and all these things until years after the alt media had begun to, the seeds of the alt media fundamentally were sown back in the Ron Paul days. That's when sort of the dedicated alt media's voice really began to take off. They ignored it until 2016. Years went by and all of these different figures were growing and planning and getting better equipment, becoming more talented, more able to speak for longer periods, talking about new ideas and branching out now into even new sites that those same firms once again are making the same mistakes with. They're saying, well, CNN's not going to have a BitChute account. CNN's not going to have a Gab page. CNN doesn't want to use, crowdfunding or whatever. You may need to. And it's going to be funny because once again, they're going to try to get a seat at the table by paying people. By then, they'll have such massive budget shortfalls. Who knows if they'll even be able to do so? They might have to cannibalize one another online too. It'd be really funny to see like CNN and Fox in a bidding war over who gets NBC's Twitter account when they fail. That would be hilarious. It'd also be the best thing for the world, really. The less propaganda, I think, generally the better. So when I see that 50% of the staff at a reasonably large paper and internet site are being cut by the parent company, it's pretty funny. And keep in mind this. When you look at write-ups about that, they're trying to call it a tabloid. As if to lessen the impact. Oh yeah, but this is like more of a tabloid and stuff. It's like, okay, nice negative connotation there. No. Why don't you call it what it really is? The legacy media is failing to make money. They keep cutting in hopes that that'll save them. It's not going to save you. What you need to do is actually, ironically, is invest more, but you need to do it entirely online. The problem is it's hard for you to compete because, who knows any of the staffers that work there unless they themselves work there or they're a really diehard fan. Like, do I know anyone that works at the New York Daily News? Like, would I recognize them? No. Now, they're wealthy and they're well-known insofar as their work goes. Their name's all over this tabloid so-called. Nobody knows who they are. They've got no presence. They probably also couldn't do what I'm doing right now and what a million other people do every single day. Totally different medium. So, good riddance to them. I hope they cut the other 50% of their staff. That's about all. Peace out.